If you present me with a facade that is basically straight up and down and doesn't add anything new, doesn't provide anything, doesn't give anything back to either the public or the client, then it doesn't matter. I mean, every project should matter in one way or the other. My name is Steen Elsted Andersen. I'm head of facade design working at Henning Larsen. Doing an opera house is not that often that you can do that, so that was really interesting. And then I sort of slided into facades. So I've been working with facades for 20 years now. To me, the interesting part of a building has always been the facade. Why does it look like it does? Why is it designed like it is? What does it give us? Is it just the view, or is it looking from the outside to the inside? For the opera house, the design was very much about, from our point of view, and from Henning Larsen's point of view at the time, very much about actually being able to stand on the other side of the harbor and seeing people walking inside the opera. I've always been sort of interested in facades and what they can do and why we're doing what we're doing, the way they're designed. And obviously, the more you get into it, the more you sort of know that there are a lot of things that you can learn more about. There are a lot of things that is just not obvious, or this you can just do it in this way. There are a lot of technical issues that goes into a facade, and it's just becoming even more difficult to design a facade. Mainly because the regulations have changed, but we also have the approach of we want to do a sustainable facade. We want to do a sustainable building, and the facade is obviously a huge part of designing a sustainable building. The interesting part is actually using materials that are sustainable, finding the right materials, optimizing the way you're using materials. By changing the geometry of the building, geometry of the skin, you can improve the overall sort of building concept and the indoor climate. The easiest way of keeping the sun out is obviously saying, fine, we put a dark coating on the glass and then the heat is left out, but what's the architectural aesthetic point of view of doing that when suddenly you're looking out and it looks like an overcast sky all the time? It's always that balance. How can we make the glass as neutral as possible, still keeping the heat out, allowing as much light in as we can? But the interesting part is finding the right combination between architecture, aesthetics. How do we want the building to look? What is the client's approach on this? If you go back, let's say 5-6 years, everybody was focusing on energy consumption, making that less, which is still the case, but nowadays it's also a lot about the materials that we're using and the carbon footprint that we are leaving behind when we are designing a building. Glass is, obviously I think glass is there to stay. We need to come up with new ideas on how to use glass, but we want to do it smart.
So why isn't every building covered in solar panels by now, when you have that clarity even in windows with the thin films and so on?
But you can get PVs that are suitable for glazing, so you can actually look through them. They are not that efficient yet. They work no matter what the weather is. Basically, if there's just a little bit of light, then they work, but they're not producing as much as the traditional crystalline PVs. We should add more technical stuff to the facade, so to speak, because all of that is moving the technology in the right direction, but also our buildings in the right direction.
You mentioned before that sustainability, a lot of things are packed into that concept. Looking at a massive project like this, what are some key features that you would label sustainable building?
I mean, what we are trying to do with this facade is actually making part of it self-shading. So we are angling some units of the glass. The facade is set up as a unitized system. So it's basically constructed off-site, brought to site and mounted. It's interesting in that way that sustainability is actually adding to our design instead of taking something away.
What are the possibilities you see for the future?
Bringing nature into our facades. I mean, we had this project in Berlin where we were integrating birds' nests, bats' nests, and also insects into to our facades and rooftops. The green facade will give you so much back. The aluminium profiles, for example, and then melding them, producing new profiles, but actually taking the old profiles that are already in the building and reusing them on another project. That would be, to me, probably the most sustainable approach. If it's aluminium, for example, I mean, we know that will stand there for 60 years or more. If we can go and say, fine, we have aluminum that is, let's say, a profile that's already been used. It doesn't rust, so it will work in a new building. And if we can somehow come up with a collaboration with manufacturers on this, and we can start designing facades towards actually using those products that are available, not just throwing them away, but taking the entire product and reusing it. That would be really, really interesting. If we can design facades, profiles, aluminium or wooden parts in a way where it's easy to pack. I mean, IKEA is a good example. They flat pack everything. If we could do something in that sense, where we're working more towards designing something that can be easily transported, then that can also be an approach to sustainability and using less energy. If you present me with a facade that is basically straight up and down and doesn't add anything new, doesn't provide anything, doesn't give anything back to either the public or the client, then it doesn't matter. And to me, I mean, every project should matter in one way or the other.